All right, Nick, let's talk about the Seattle Seahawks. The Seahawks last year, there was a little bit of a rough start. They had to get things into motion, had to figure out how to make this team click, but with new coaching staff and things of the like, you got to expect those kind of things. And they made a pretty major change this offseason, firing their old offensive coordinator, Ben Grubb, and hiring their new offensive coordinator, Clint Kubiak. And we think we have some information here. This is going to be a huge change for the Seahawks after they go over their plan. I think Seahawks fans are going to love the new direction for this offense. But before we get into that, I'm Andrew, and this is Saturday Morning Inspection. All right, Nick, as I alluded to, the Seahawks have a brand new plan for this offense, and I think this is what we've been talking about, what Seahawks fans have been clamoring for all the past season, just how to get this offense clicking in the right direction. I think Kubiak has the right plan, but let's get into the article. We can talk more about it on the other side. This is over from ESPN. It says, where Grubb was a lifelong college coach who heavily favored shotgun, Kubiak, talking about new coordinator Clint Kubiak, Vikings and Saints offenses were near the top of the NFL of under center snaps. Kubiak also used a true fullback in both stops, something Seattle didn't have last season. And while the Seahawks' run game experienced a short-lived breakout in December with a gap scheme attack, Kubiak's forte is the outside zone, which his father, Gary Kubiak, adopted from Mike Shanahan in the 90s. New Orleans ran the second highest percentage of outside zone runs last season, and Kubiak plans to make that the focal point of Seattle's rushing attack. Says it's important to establish a way of doing business here, he said. We're going to start with being an outside zone, but obviously we're going to incorporate gap schemes, inside zones, pin and pull. We've got to do what our players do best. I love that part. So we have a philosophy that we believe in, a style that we believe in, and you got to be able to win more than one way, like we said. I think all of these are just really great signs for Seahawks fans that Kubiak has a vision for this offense that is really going to help it get to the next level. I'm curious what your thoughts are on this one, Nick, but before we get to you, Seahawks fans, in the comment section below, we're talking about new offensive focus here, and we're talking about free agency. It's right around the corner. We're looking it dead in the face right now with this new information on how Kubiak is going to run this offense. Is there any players out there that you think the Seahawks need to go grab that would help this team run that offense? Is there anyone you like? Let us know in the comment section below. But nonetheless, Nick, what do you think about this latest out of Seattle?
So when it first happened, of course, the hiring of Clint Kubiak when it was first announced, there was, a lot of discussion and a lot of applause. It was considered obviously a very solid hire, just a strategic change from Grubb to Kubiak, who, despite a disappointing end with the Saints, was widely respected as a really solid offensive mind. And when the Saints are healthy, the very beginning of the season, they blew the brakes off of everybody. But now we can take a step back. We can look across the entire National Football League landscape, look at all the hires, look at all the fires, look what teams change strategies, which teams double down on prior strategies. And I think it's pretty clear at this point the Seattle Seahawks made the hire of the offseason. Maybe even when it's all said and done, depending on what happens in free agency and the draft, maybe even the move of the offseason. Because this strategic shift, it reminds me very similar of when the Philadelphia Eagles brought in Vic Fangio to be their defensive coordinator. They needed a defensive strategic shift. They didn't need a massive personnel change. Now, look, obviously the Eagles, they drafted a few DBs. They signed a good linebacker, of course. But what they needed was just a strategy shift of how they were handling and approaching their defense. They had the players. They had the front four, right? They already had one of the best front fours in football, but they were just terrible at stopping people, terrible at stopping the pass. They needed to change their X's and O's and their overall strategy, and that's what the Seattle Seahawks have done here with Clint Kubiak. And this is a running team for Seattle last year that was still pretty efficient. They were top 10 according to PFF. But what was very interesting to me is their run blocking was bottom 8 according to PFF. What does it mean? It means they have talented running backs. It means they have the ability to get more yardage there outside of great blocking. So if you have a scheme to come in that is more run heavy to take advantage of those running opportunities where the running backs are being so efficient, it'll open everything up. This is one of those hires that when it's all said and done, we're going to see productivity just escalate across the board for Seattle. Geno Smith efficiency up, receivers generating more big plays, running backs getting more touches. The report goes on to highlight how big of an impact Kenneth Walker will have in the Seattle offense in 2025. And it doesn't have to be just a massive, we're going to change everything. We're just going to be an old school power football team. Just changing your concepts from being a lot of shotgun, do a lot of now outside zone, come up with some dedicated run strategies, come up with a game plan that's allowing you to take advantage of against a team that struggles to stop the run. It's almost like a passing attack where your quarterback can't throw deep, you're hamstrung. That's what the Seahawks were with their running strategy last year. They were very simple, they were very basic, very college level. Obviously, Ryan Grubb comes from the college ranks. Here we're going to see a much more diverse Seattle Seahawks running attack where inside zone, outside zone, even though they're predominantly an outside zone team, that's Clint Kubiak's bread and butter. Obviously, Gary Kubiak, his dad, worked with Mike Shanahan way back in the day to develop the modern outside zone running scheme. But we're going to see a little bit of everything. We're going to see pin and pull. We're going to see toss crack. We're going to see inside trap. We're going to see a lot of great stuff from the Seattle Seahawks offensive running strategy going forward, and it'll just open up the entire playbook for them. It'll make defenses have to plan for everything, and we're going to see this offensive line play better for it because defenses won't be able to pin their ears back. Geno Smith's going to be much more efficient. The receivers, more big plays. Running backs, we're going to see more yards to align with their efficiency that we saw in PFF. Sometimes it doesn't take a massive free agent signing. Sometimes it doesn't take a massive trade. If you can just change your strategy, you can go from being a decent team to a really, really good team. And I think the hiring of Clint Kubiak is going to turn a solid offense led by some really quality skill players to an elite offense that can do just about everything. We saw it with the Philadelphia Eagles defense and Vic Fangio. I think the move of the offseason, now that we can take a step back of last year where the Eagles ended up, I think we have a chance to see a similar impact with the hiring of Clint Kubiak for the Seattle offense.
Yeah, Nick, and we talked about this a little bit like a few months ago, just talking about the inefficiency of Seattle's offense last season under Grubb, talking about the lack of play action involved in the scheme, really, and the lack of under center plays, because that was where Geno Smith shined a few years ago in 2022 when you were able to see it. So last year, they ran 23% of their plays were play action dropbacks, but only 16.8% of those plays were passes on play action dropbacks, which is criminally low. It was like the lowest in the NFL, ahead of only Kirk Cousins and the Atlanta Falcons. Now you go back to 2022, Geno Smith completed 150 play action pass attempts in 2022. What did that give them? 8 touchdowns. It gave him 73.9% completion percentage on those plays. He had 12 big-time throws, and he averaged 9.6 yards per attempt. He was absolutely lethal in the play-action game, the under-center game. He was great on fakes. That was really his bread and butter, but it kind of seemed like the Seahawks at a point in time removed that from the playbook the last couple of years. I think that this would be a huge boost to Geno Smith as well, just getting something like they said in the article, doing what the players do best, not running your scheme, running a scheme that fits your players, running a scheme that benefits Kenneth Walker, running a scheme that benefits the wide receivers you have. I think this is really a breath of fresh air for the Seahawks. If I'm a Seahawks fan, I'm really excited about this latest news from Kubiak.
And just one final point to end on here. When you have a diverse offensive strategy where you can run a million different plays, run play action, run shotgun, run standard dropback, it forces the opposition to plan for everything. And the Seahawks, by lacking that versatility, like you mentioned, they're not running play action, they're not under center very much over the past couple seasons. It allows opposing defenses to come up with game plans. It allows them to prepare for a much simpler offense. You want to make life as hard as you possibly can on opposing coaches when they prepare for you, and you do that by being able to do a lot of things well, a lot of alignments, a lot of formations, under center, shotgun, standard run, inside zone, outside zone, play action. All of those different things make it hard for defenses to prepare for you, which makes it easier for your offense to execute. The Seattle Seahawks lacked that the past 2 seasons. They're going to have it under Clint Kubiak, and I'm going to go and make a prediction right now. I don't know if Seattle wins the Super Bowl like Philly does, but in 365 days, we'll be talking about this hire the same way we're talking about Vic Fangio going to Philly.